Now recording. Recording is now in progress. So now now back to what we said before. Cheers. We both get our water and we are ready to go. So I'm going to do the introduction and then we'll take it from there. Here we go. Get all warmed up. Try not to cough. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin. Oh, I buggered that up. Let me do that again. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast, the podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Dr. Fern Kazlow from New York City. Now, Dr. Kazlow, also known as Dr. K, is a licensed clinical psychotherapist, speaker, author, business and marketing strategist, and a mentor to high performers. She is the #1 authority in peak performance resistance. Now, for the past 35 years, Dr. K has been helping high performer CEOs, entrepreneurs to shatter limitations and to create a life of business of purpose and freedom. And today, we're going to be talking about becoming the top of your field. So, Dr. K, how are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. Really excited to be back here doing this with you.
Well, we did about 5 or 6 episodes together on It's No Secret Dr. T. We did a lot on branding, top performance. So I will put links in the show notes here to the other podcast if people want to go back, and because they were all fantastic.
Yeah, that was so fun. And the branding one is so relevant when you want to get to the top of your field. Really branding, and not in terms of the things people used to talk about, but the things we talked about in those podcasts, really deep dive.
Yeah, well, I've used that information in a number of talks I've done where I've said, oh, and I had Dr. K on my other podcast, and I've listed some of the things that you spoke about. And geez, it makes me sound far more intelligent when I talk about it.
Well, you must have been brilliant. It sounded really brilliant because you're super smart in my book. So,
thank you.
But you are speaking to the topic today, and that's how people speak about themselves and feel about themselves when no one's looking.
What's really funny is it was my birthday. So as I'm recording this is the day after my birthday. So it was my birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. And I got some really, really fantastic messages from friends, not so much family. My family always poke fun of me, which is what they're supposed to do. But other podiatrists that I know who just sent me messages thanking me for this podcast, for putting it together, just some of the things I've been doing in the profession. And it felt really good. It felt really, really good. And a lot of times when people pay you compliments, I've gone, I felt a little bit squeamish about it. But now, just recently, I've started going, thank you. When they give me a compliment, I go, thank you very much. I don't hide from it anymore. It's taken a while.
I was just going to say that took a while.
Took a long time, yeah.
It seems like a simple thing, but it really goes back to so many things that are deep, that it's not so simple. And it really goes back or goes forward to some of the reasons that make it hard to move into the top 1%.
So what is it? So today we're going to talk about, becoming the top of your field. Mm-hmm. And you work with people who are in the top 1% of their field in a lot of different professions. And you said you've not worked with, but you've been to a number of podiatrists over a number of years.
I think I have a bag of orthotics to prove it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think in New York, I probably could get the prize for meeting the most podiatrists over the years.
So what was your foot problem?
Neuromas.
Oh, they're buggers of things.
They are just a bear.
Yeah. Yeah, and they can be difficult to treat.
Really, really hard. But the one podiatrist that literally nailed it, I think of him all the time. He's not in practice anymore, and I wish he was. So is there like an I love my podiatrist button that we could get?
Yeah. It's probably a sticker.
Something like that, because he was amazing. And what he did for me, I was like able to wear high heels and all kinds of things that nobody else was able to help me do. So
what was it? What was it about him that made the difference?
Okay, that's a really great question. What was about him was a couple of things. One is he did not give up.
Okay.
My feet were I'm a challenge. Okay. And pretty much, all across the board, and my feet were no different. So he didn't give up when it was hard, when we get a pair of orthotics that didn't work. He didn't say like, forget it. Like, we can't do this. He was like, he stayed really steady. and he stayed the course. And he also had some really, I don't think it was the whole thing of it. He had some really cool machines that helped him to analyze things, but he was a really good listener. And I don't think it was so natural for him. Okay. Honestly, I bet, I mean, I can't go back. I'd love to go back and interview him, this many years later. I bet just getting his personality that it wasn't so natural, but he wanted so much to succeed in a real open-hearted way. It wasn't about like proving he was the best. It was about really being the best, or the best he could be, and helping his patients the most. So he really paid attention. If something didn't work, he went back to the drawing board. He was studying, he was big in sports psychology and psychology. So I see this is where my brain goes.
Yeah.
Sports medicine. But I didn't go to him for sports medicine. I went to him because I was referred to him by somebody who had. And so he really watched. He watched things. He listens to things. He asked me to do all kinds of things that nobody else did. I mean, I must have brought him a zillion pairs of shoes. He watched me walk. He watched me get in different positions. He didn't just say, okay, we're going to put these in your feet and see if they work.
Yeah.
He got them, and then I had to come back. And it was like, really? It was like, yeah, really? But that really was like, it nailed it. It really nailed it. So I smile when I think of him.
So when you say that he was a good communicator, are you saying the other podiatrists that you saw weren't good communicators, or just didn't listen?
Okay. And I'm going to actually say he was not a great communicator.
Oh, okay. Just a good listener.
He was a good listener. He was a good hearer. He was a good listener, and he was a good hearer. So I think that was the difference, is that he went in and he had this openness and this desire to really think outside of the box, because I'm an outside of the box or a no box person.
Yeah.
So if you try and do what usually works, you're going to get nowhere. But he was really opened and wanted to listen, hear, look at different things, listen when I'd say this works, this doesn't work, this works, this, instead of getting like pissed off or frustrated, right? And just kind of like, which a lot of podiatrists do, and a lot of humans do, right? It's like just a thing. And I think in medicine, I've worked with a lot of health professionals. You're mentioning entrepreneurs and CEOs. I've worked for decades with health professionals. And one of the things that's tricky for health professionals is that they so want to make a difference. They so want to help their patients that sometimes it confounds things. Right? Sometimes they get mad at the patient if the patient's difficult. Sometimes they get mad at having to have a business because all they really want to do is go in and do their gift, their craft, their, podiatry or dentistry or whatever, whatever field of medicine they're in. So yeah, he was a better listener. He asked better questions.
Okay.
And I'm sure he was frustrated, but he dealt with it. And he didn't do it by dumping it. He just would go back to the drawing board. So that was what's different. He wasn't a great communicator, and he wasn't a great people person. He was kind of short, not short, but kind of short, kind of short in his manner. He wasn't like the best friend. Like, he wasn't like warm and fuzzy. He wasn't, but you knew that he really tried. He really cared, and he was not going to give up until he got it. He was in there with you and was not giving up and was not blaming you. It wasn't just saying, oh, you just have to get used to it. Oh, no, it was like, if it hurt, he really got that it hurt and we needed to shift something.
So there was something you said just before, or just a little bit earlier then, and you said when podiatrists say get frustrated with patients, are they really frustrated with the patient, or is it frustration with the business and also treating patients? So sometimes they're trying to run their business and they've got other things going on in their head, and they've got staff, family life, all these other things going on. And then all of a sudden they've got this patient who may be having a few difficulties, and they get very short with them, not in height, as we've already mentioned. They go from 6'2" to 5'8". Do you think that has a big part of it? Just the life running business would create tension?
Okay, I think it's different for different podiatrists, different people in any health profession. So I think that most health professionals, when they can't help the patient the way they want to, they're frustrated. I think that if you look at health professionals across the board, they didn't go into, most of them, okay, I know some of them, and like you have a little different story in terms of what your proclivities, and I'm a little different. I don't know too many therapists that also love business, love marketing, right? I don't. But most of them like went in because they wanted to deal with fixing feet. Well, first of all, one of the things they didn't realize is that fixing feet were attached to difficult humans.
Oh, true.
So that was one of the things that it's like, veterinarians, it's like they wanted to treat the dogs, but they didn't realize that the dogs were attached at the leash to difficult owners who wanted the best for their dogs, but get very frustrating. So in a way, it's like podiatrists. It's like those feet that are difficult enough, and they are. I mean, it as one. They're not easy. I know it just because I've been a difficult patient that way. So they get frustrated with the challenge, which draws them and intrigues them. Then they've got a patient attached to it that's difficult. Then they have a business, which is not why they went into podiatry almost all the time.
Yeah.
Then they have what you mentioned, staff. So you have staff that are not happy because for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're just not happy. Maybe they want more money. Maybe they're overwhelmed. I was talking to somebody today, a professional, who was telling me that his front office person, after 5 years, they decided to let her move on because of the stress, that she just couldn't handle the stress of it. It wasn't her business. And we were kind of joking, but not joking. If she handled the stress better, she might be in his position or in my position. But instead, she was a front office person.
Yeah.
And she was like, dealing with all the things that came with that. So I think the business aspects are definitely a compounder. But there's also other factors. You've got a whole bunch of factors that are compounding. You've got the patients. Maybe you've got a kid and you've got a parent or a spouse that's also putting pressure. Insurance companies, I don't know about how that works in Australia, but in the US, you've got insurance companies are a huge part of the equation. So dealing with that. And then all of the aspects of marketing. We're talking about branding. That's not something that most podiatrists know how to do.
Yeah.
It's not their skill set. So I think all of those things kind of come to that perfect storm. They just kind of go up.
It's a compounding effect. And when you said before, some people have gone into business and that was never their plan. And I know a lot of podiatrists that have podiatry businesses. And at no stage did they ever think when they started podiatry that they were going to have their own business. It was never part of their ambition. There's another group that I know that's all, they always wanted to have their own business. And I think there's people that are sort of feel like they were almost like forced into having the business or was expected. I was talking to someone recently and she said, she's got podiatrists that work for her that are really good people that, podiatrists that work for her, but she knows in a couple of years they're going to have their own business because they're watching their friends have their own business and they feel this is something I must do, or otherwise I'm looked upon that I haven't sort of progressed. And I don't think you always have to have your own business.
Now, I call those reluctant entrepreneurs
at
best, right? So I think that's a really good point to really know, what is it that I want? What do I want? Do I want to just, and I don't mean just in a small way, but do I want to be a podiatrist and somebody else to deal with business? Do I want to have, there are some podiatrists that get excited and have multiple clinics and it's really exciting to them. And maybe they didn't realize it when they went in, or maybe they kind of knew about themselves. Like I knew about me that I love business, but if you'd asked me if I thought I would be doing what I was doing, probably not, but I did know I love business.
Yeah.
So I think there's those different aspects. And then even things that about, like insurance companies, knowing about it and dealing with it, because insurance companies make it a business and not in an easy way. So, justifying that patient, justifying whatever treatment plan it is that you need. And I don't know if it's as hard in Australia as it is in the US, but
no, not with insurance. With insurance companies over here, it's pretty simple. And we do deal with different government bodies and agencies, and all those things can create problems and difficulties in certain ways. But compared to like podiatrists I know in America who deal with insurance companies, my God, it is just a absolute complicated beast.
Mess. Oh, it's incredible. It really
you're like this, because I don't know if I've told you. So I'm with a company called Medibank Private. There's no plug to Medibank Private at all. But what Medibank Private do, they give me this thing called my card. This is my Medibank private health fund card. So I go and see a podiatrist, for example. I have treatment. I hand over my card. They get my card. They swipe it through the like FPOS machine. A thing will come up and say, Tyson, for that $100 visit, you are covered for $45. Would you like, and how would you like to pay the balance? I pay the balance right there and then. And I go home and the podiatrist is paid there and then. All the money goes into the bank account that night. Nice and simple. That's how we deal with insurance companies.
Yeah. Oh, we won't even talk about that in
Yeah.
New York City. In the States, in New York, no. And different parts of the States are different. So we're talking about compounding. Can we talk about some of the personal factors as well?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the issues of dealing with patients. We're talking about dealing with patients' family and staff and insurance, not so much in Australia, but all the aspects of running a business, right? Even building the facility. There's just so many different aspects to that. But one of the ones that's always triggered is our internal game, our internal process. And today, in some ways, it's it's easier and harder. On the one hand, it's easier because people recognize that the inner game is huge, is so important. But it's also harder because people kind of expect you to be able to just flip it like that. Like, do you have a good mindset? Are you motivated? And they don't understand that it's not like that. That mindset is an outcome. Okay, mindset isn't just, I'm going to think positive, or I'm going to decide I love the business aspect. I'm just going to decide that, right? I'm going to think positively and I'm going to do an affirmation. I love the business. And no. So you've got that other aspect. But one of the things that business really does is, and being a health professional does it, and having a business, both of them do it, is it triggers our own ways that we see the world and the ways we feel about ourselves. So if we take let's take both of those, the ways we feel about ourselves. So if we feel somewhere in there that we're not good enough, and that's a feeling that's so common. I mean, we look at people who are so successful, and if you talk to them, they had a struggle to accept that they were really good, that they really had a gift, that they were really valuable. I mean, little things that sometimes people come through rough childhoods that really were rough and demeaning, and other times they weren't so rough, but things that came up were taken to heart, right? We don't really grow up learning to protect the tender soft spot in ourselves or in others. Like, as a parent, we want to, but we really don't get a great education about that.
Yeah.
And as teachers, we don't get a great education. Like, if you're in podiatry school or psychology school or veterinary school, you don't get a great education on how do you help groom this next generation so that they can take those doubts, but also feel good about their accomplishments and don't get hit by failure so hard, but take it in stride, use it as a learning situation. So when these things come up that are difficult, whether it's not getting the result you want with a patient, whether it's having a clinic that's not making it the way you want, not making money. And let's face it, you and I both know that's not easy. And in the beginning, it's really not easy. What happens is that it triggers our internal belief. And I actually say it goes deeper. It's like our internal trances. Like, our beliefs are like, okay, what I think about this. Our trances are something that you and I have talked about, like confirmation bias. So when you're in a trance, it's like everything you see proves what you believe. And if it doesn't prove it, you don't even see it. So I kind of say, and you've probably heard me say this before, first you make it up, then you believe it, then you create your life to prove that it's true.
Okay, because we were talking about the confirmation bias, because I said on a particular podiatry Facebook page, somebody made a comment about orthotics being made, and the podiatrist initially was talking about, oh, there's a lot of podiatrists that make orthotics who aren't qualified to be making orthotics, and they should stop doing it. And I thought about that, and I'm thinking, well, like, I graduated in 1988. All I knew about making orthotics was what I was taught at university. In 1989, I was making orthotics. Now, over the last 32 years, I think that same process has been actually happening. But anyway, so there's one conversation about who should not be making orthotics. So that was a different conversation. Mm-hmm. The next part of the conversation went on to somebody making a comment. The problem is all these podiatrists, that all they care about is making money. They don't care about the patients, and they're forcing all these new graduates to meet quotas, and that's burning them out, and they're putting out bad orthotics. And I'm listening to this going, that is so wrong. I know some podiatrists that have great businesses that are fantastic podiatrists. And yes, they make a lot of money, but making money doesn't mean that you don't care about your patients. And I feel that sometimes they may have had one bad experience in their life. And I mentioned it to you that maybe their boss worked, or maybe their father or mother worked for a boss who was a bastard and was mean and made a ton of money. And therefore they've grown up thinking only mean, nasty people make a lot of money. And that is holding them back somehow.
You know, it's interesting because there's incidences like that. And in the health professions, I think it goes even deeper. I mean, we do have that about people who are greedy and just about money, but there's such a, it's like ingrained in the medical profession that if you're interested in money, you're not interested in patients.
Yeah.
And so it lives in people in an interesting way. So on one hand, some people have taken it in, like, and they really believe if you're interested in money, you're not interested in patients. So the conflict within them, because we do need money, right? We do need money to live. And some of us want more money than others. So that, you know, if you've taken that in, it's a conflict. Others don't believe it, but they deal with how they may be perceived. One of the things that's really interesting is that I've spent decades working with high achievers, and I'm writing a book now about high achievers. And so I'm interviewing a lot of health professionals, high achieving entrepreneurs. And one of the things that's interesting is that they have a point that they can recognize where they went from caring about what other people said, thought about them, and to a point where they just didn't anymore. So to get to top of your field requires this space where you start to judge it by an internal process. So if you have feelings about money and being a good doctor and wanting money, you deal with those and they don't go outside of it. But until they reach that point, that's really difficult. Like if I'm successful, other people are going to say that. And I told you a story before about somebody, when I was opening, I had one of the first holistic centers literally in the world in New York City. And I had somebody come into my office and they were looking at it, and they were a relative, and they were basically saying, if I wanted to have a business, I would have become an accountant, not a health professional. And there I was, all excited. I was so excited because this was such a dream of mine to be able to make this kind of difference and have one of the first mind-body, centers, like literally in the world. I was really I was so excited. And then they came in and it was like, well, if I wanted to do, if I wanted to be about money, and I was like, yeah, I want to make money, because if I don't make money, something else you and I talked about, if I don't make money, I can't be there for my patients. I'm not going to pay New York City rent. I'm not going to be able to be healthy. I'm not going to be able to pay for my daughter's babysitter so I can work.
Yeah.
I mean, we need money. So there's this place where you have to examine, do you have that belief or not? Is it somebody else's? Is it not operative? Where do you really feel? And then where it is in you, say, is the belief that I hold about this, is it serving me? So I was, ask this litmus test question: is what I'm thinking, feeling, believing, doing, bringing me closer or further to who I want to be and what I want to create in the world?
Oh, nice.
If it is, like, go for it, right?
Yeah.
I call it the litmus test question. It's like I ask myself and I ask patients and
what was it? What was that term you used? What was it called?
It's like the litmus test question. So whenever you're trying to decide if you want to like nurture feeling, right? Like maybe you're angry about something or feel like a lot of like jealousy or grief or whatever it is. So you want to have all your feelings. It's not that you push your feelings down. And that's one of the ways that high achievers get in trouble, right? They push it down until they can't. And they're really good at pushing them down. So we don't want to push it down, but we want feelings to move through us. But you want to say, is that feeling like empathy? Empathy can really help a business person, a health professional, a human. But being overly sympathetic does not help somebody, right? Feeling sadness or grief in that moment is part of the human experience.
Yeah.
But staying stuck in that. So, and then
is that where some people will wallow in other people's misery, where you'll have a friend or something like that, or somebody who's down, and you can empathize with them and understand how they feel. But some people get down there with them.
Mhm.
And next
You don't
minute,
wanna get-
they're as depressed as what they are. And they
Yeah.
both wallow down in that area.
And it's not helpful to either one of them.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to have the feeling, you want to be able to have empathy, but you want to be able to let feelings move through you and hold a space. If you have a friend or a patient, whatever, and they're having grief, right? You have a patient maybe that's got diabetes and they're really having some really big problems. You want to hold the space for them to have their feeling. It's not just buck up, but you don't want to compound it by going down there with them.
Yeah.
But it's not only about thoughts and feelings, it's also about our actions. Before I take an action, or when a client or student of mine or patient is talking about doing something, I'll say, have you asked that question? Is this going to serve you for being the kind of person that creates what you want? Is this going to create what you want? Because if it's not, then you have to have a pretty good reason for why you're doing it. Basically, it's a yay or a nay. It's
Yeah.
either helping you move on to who you want to be, not who you've been, but who you want to be, right? And it also is about what you want to create. So as a podiatrist, it's about how do I want to serve my patients, my community, my family, myself? And you've got to ask those questions. I mean, you don't have to, but if you ask those questions, now you have a blueprint. And you don't get so overwhelmed because if something serves that purpose, you do it. If it doesn't, you see if there's a way to tweak it, or else you have to find something else to do. And it makes life much less overwhelming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So going back to the confirmation bias side of things, then, if somebody believes that when they see a podiatrist that's really successful means they don't care about their patients, are they doing things in their life to almost self-sabotage? So if their business starts to grow to a certain point and starts to get too busy, and all of a sudden it looks like they might actually start making some really good money and look like that person they didn't want to be, do they do things to almost stop it from happening?
Yes, and I'm going to flip a different word because people talk about sabotage. And on one hand, it is sabotage, but sabotage is almost always, and when I say almost, it's like somebody can be on drugs or something weird, right? But when we're doing what looks like sabotage, I always look for what's the positive thing you're trying to do in a dysfunctional way. So if you're afraid that getting too successful is going to make your wife, for example, or your husband think that you're a greedy bastard, if I can use that word on the podcast, right?
Yeah, I used it before. It's fine.
So it's like, if they're kind of seeing that, if you're afraid they're going to see you that way, or maybe your mother or other colleagues are going to see you in a certain way, then it's actually pretty functional to say, whoa, I'm going to make sure I don't go further because I don't want to hurt my relationships. I don't want to hurt my community. I don't want my patients to see me a certain way. So until you resolve the deeper issue, it's not that you're really acting for sabotage. You're actually holding yourself back for a higher level priority. So we always go to the highest level priority. Okay. So the higher priority is that we want to feel good about ourselves. We want our spouse to feel good about us, our family, our patients, our community. Or we're afraid maybe if we're seen as greedy, we'll lose business because people say, oh, I'm going to go to that podiatrist down the street. The one who has a heart, the one who really cares about their patients, and the one who I just kind of like that one better. So we make up all these things, and then we do a lot of things. So one thing we can do is hold ourselves back. Another is that we can put ourselves in circles that will confirm that. You said confirmation bias. Yeah. So we can hang out with people that will confirm that, or we can tell them stories that will get them to say, wow, it's really a good thing you're not like that, right? We're so creative that we could talk for a really long time about all the different ways that we get people to help us stop going further, but confirm what we believe. We're just so creative and so brilliant. So the more we're aware, without judgment, because if we think, oh, this is a really bad thing that I do, but what happens? I mean, you and I have done some of this on calls before. It's like you can feel your body, everything shuts down, right? If you say, this is a terrible thing I'm doing, it's like, I'm not going to be successful. You start just going in and going down and looking down. You're not very attracting as a field, right? Yeah. But you are actually limiting your success. However, if you can look inside and kind of say, oh, I kind of get how that happened. And you can look at even your body. Maybe you go on stage and you actually go on stage hunched over a little bit because you don't want to seem full of hubris, full of like pride. So you go to give a talk in the community about the importance of taking care of your feet, and you're standing there like this, right? You do things to sabotage your success in all kinds of creative ways. So I think it's really important that we don't judge it negatively, but we appreciate what we're doing. Okay, you want to be appreciating what you're doing.
Okay. So, because we were talking earlier, and I said, how people come into podiatry is a little bit different. I've had a lot of people on the podcast, and some people, podiatry was the number one thing they always wanted to do. And they seem to have a certain attitude towards podiatry. Then there's another group of podiatrists that they've come into podiatry because it was like their second choice. It wasn't the first thing they wanted to do. So they sort of ended up in podiatry. And some of them have still had cracking careers and have done really well. But I know now these are people on the podcast, so I get to talk to them. But I know in the profession, there's been a number of people that do podiatry that it wasn't their first choice, and they sort of feel bad about it. That, I wasn't smart enough to become a physio. I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor, or I wanted to do something else and I didn't get into it. And I sometimes wondered, have they started on the wrong foot or feeling not worthy? And has that continued through their career a little bit when they're talking to other health professionals? Whereas I said to you, difference with me, I was going to be an art teacher. So being a podiatrist was a massive step up. So I never had a problem talking to other physios, other health professionals, because as far as I'm concerned, I was their equal from day dot, and I've never thought otherwise.
So it's interesting because people that have that, it's not that the first experience there, it could be that getting rejected, in quotes, right? That getting rejected from their first choice could be a trauma that could set them on that path of just whatever they do, whatever they accomplish after that, it's always in the shadow of that.
Yeah.
More people, it is triggering something that happened earlier in life, some earlier time, that somebody said something that was someone important to them, like maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, and it stuck. And then when they didn't get into the school of their choice, it became a confirmation, again, back to that idea of a confirmation. Maybe I didn't really expect to get in anyway. And now it becomes like a pall.
So it's like past things that have happened. And then this happens again as they're 17, 18, moving into like adulthood. And bang, they get told again, you are not worthy. And they're going, right, I've been told that before. But they didn't even realize that's happened before. And that can sort of stick with them.
So some people will know it and they'll say, yeah, see, this is what always happens. Some people will not even realize that they're being triggered. And some people, it really will be that it was just so devastating to them.
Yeah.
That even as an adult, it really shadowed everything. And maybe they didn't even really want to do this, right? But somebody who comes in with a little bit healthier in their psyche and a little more resilient, then they might do a couple of things differently. One is that they might really find the joy in the podiatry because they did make that as another choice. So they might find the joy, or they might, if they really wanted to do something else, do podiatry for a number of years and then switch. So there's a lot of different things based on how you handle your nervous system. Okay, because that's one thing. High achievers got a nervous system that they do a lot of push. And if they're not careful, and you and I have talked about this in the past, burnout happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And so people have to be aware what really causes burnout. Well, burnout is caused by many different things. It can be caused by dealing with all this business stuff you don't want to be dealing with, staff issues that you don't want to be dealing with. It could be being in the wrong profession, or it could be that you've never learned how to modulate, literally how to regulate your nervous system so that you push upsets down. Everything's going in the office that's not so great. You push it all down. And eventually it takes its toll because you haven't learned. Like a lot of high achievers have this nervous system that's really activated, right? So, blah, 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 and they keep go. And eventually you get what we call burnout.
Yeah.
So it's really important that people learn to reach. Do you hear that thunderstorm in the background?
Is that what that noise is? I keep hearing this noise in the background. And at one stage I'm thinking, I was going like, am I breathing too heavy in my microphone? So I'm moving
No,
away.
this is
And then
in
I
real
see where
life.
I see where your microphone is, and I'm going, well, it's not you. I'm thinking someone moving furniture. So that's thunder in the background.
That is thunder. Yeah, we have thunder, lightning, like an insane storm happening outside.
And this is amazing. So this is what I love about technology. I am in the tropics in Cairns, and it's actually overcast and raining here as well, early hours of the morning. And you're over in New York City, and there's a thunderstorm. So at least people know what that noise is. It's not us
They
moving
know, yeah, I
furniture
wanted to
around.
say like, okay, so that's what it is. Now, can
Yeah.
we take that and use that for just a moment, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you're somebody who looks at problems more than possibilities, right? You look at the problems. You've got that, and you know, there's a genetic piece to optimism and pessimism, but that's not your destiny, what you were born with, right? You've got a tendency. So you could hear this, and you could be sitting and going, oh my God, stuff always happens, right? I could be sitting and saying stuff, or you could be saying stuff always happens. Instead, we're kind of laughing about it, saying it's good for people to know what's happening in the background. That there's like a for real, like torrential storm that's happening. And that's like, you know, that's what those
I must
sounds
admit,
are.
when I first started doing podcasting, is every time there was one little interruption, years ago now, I would just go, oh, damn it. And I'd get the shits. But now you sort of go, you know what? You just roll with it. We've had times where I've been talking and the internet's cut out. There's been power outages. I've had the next door neighbor decide to start whippersnippering, or mowing the lawn. I'm going, seriously, did you not know I was doing a podcast today? And I've learned to just roll with it.
So what's fun, okay, everybody watching you or listening to you,
Yeah.
if you listen to your voice, or if you're watching this video, you could see like when you were talking about it first, there was so much tension.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what most high achievers, right? So a lot of people don't want to get to the top because they don't want to be like that. That's another thing that it's like, no, I watched my father, I watched my grandfather, I watched my next door neighbor. I don't want to be like that. However, what you did when you said, I learned to relax, I learned to kind of go with it. So the cool thing is that we can learn to make that shift right from the start. So that we don't have to have that run us. So there's all kinds of things that run us. We've got something that I call the resistance paradox. And
that sounds cool. This sounds really cool. So
okay. So this is really cool. And I kind of, you said you were reading before about me being the number one expert on peak performance resistance.
Yes.
But I'm also the number one chief. I'm the resistor in chief. Okay. So like, I really understand this topic really well. And I bet you do too. I know you well enough to know you do too. Like, we really know how to resist, right?
Yeah.
So people that want to go to the top, or that are at the top, high achievers, have a particular flavor. Everybody's got this dynamic between what they want to accomplish and the fact that as humans, we really are set up, we need to be safe, right? And that's why some people say in sales, go for the no. Like, we're wired to say no. We're wired to look for danger. Now, people that want to go to the top, they tend to have a higher capacity for risk. And people that don't have that naturally can actually develop a greater capacity. Okay, one of the things that my work is all about is creating capacity. So you don't have, one of the ways you shatter limitations is you expand your capacity to feel, to think, to act in ways that are going to serve you, right?
Yeah.
So as a high achiever, we've got often big dreams, like doing this podcast, right? I mean, this is huge what you do with that. And yet we're still human. So we have this place that we want to protect ourselves. So we've got resistance there. And we have things that have worked. And so they've worked to a point, and we're kind of like, okay, this has worked. It's gotten me really far. I'm not so sure that I want to give up this way of being, thinking, feeling, pushing, even though people say it might burn me out, or people say it won't grow my business the way I want, or people say whatever. Right?
Yeah.
They say whatever, but it's worked to a point. So, that expression, what got me here won't get you there.
Yeah.
It's actually what got you here is now going to hold you back from what you need to do and who you need to be to get to that next step. So one of the things that is the most effective for being successful is learning how to work with your own inner resistance.
So, okay. So, well, just going back one step. So when you said, yeah, what got you here won't get you there.
Will now hold you back. It'll be the very way of being that will keep you either from getting more successful or to get there without greater stress on your relationships, your health, your sense of self.
Okay, so some of your success will actually hold you back from further success.
Well, it's not the success, but the way you got to success.
Okay. So this is what you're talking about with the burnout. So you might burn yourself out to become successful, but you can't go any further because you've burnt yourself out.
Because you burn yourself out, or the way of being, the way that you run a business. So sometimes people will get a business and they'll come to me and they'll say, I can't get my business past, like, I can't get it past $3 million or $1 million or 500,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to run that business and be the person who has like a $500,000 business.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got to increase your capacity, for example, for leadership, for things going wrong, for risk, for hiring people and letting go, right? Like, that hands-off CEOs, it's like, you've got to really be able to like hand things off to other people. So when you grow your business, you can be really hands-on. You probably need to in the beginning, but at a certain point, if you want to have a clinic or a series of clinics, you can't hold on the same way.
Yeah.
So you've actually got to learn different skills and have a different capacity within you. So the very things that get you to a certain point will now either keep you from expanding your success, either with patients, with business, or you can do it, but you might get sick. You might end up with a burned out marriage or a dead marriage, not the relationship with your kids that you want, or just joyless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I had someone on episode 159, Carly O'Donoghue was on, and she said at a certain point in your business, you've got to get off the dance floor and get on the balcony. And she just said, you can't, you can only take your business to a certain point by staying on the dance floor. But at a certain point, you've got to get off the dance floor and you've got to start managing people and managing your business if you want to, if you want to take it to that next level.
Okay, so I want to say something about that, because that is so key. Everybody now is like scale. And some people don't want to scale. It's not what they want. They love what they do. They want to be on the dance floor dancing. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's a great
description. Oh, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Fantastic. So people are being pushed, like what you said before, I should, and all over the internet and all over articles, like scale. And, it's always about scaling, but not everybody wants to scale. Some people want to grow their business as it is. They want to be as successful. They want to make as much money as they can in a way that works for the kind of business they have. So even if you do that, you have to learn different skill set. Okay. So to have a business that's 500,000 versus 2 million or whatever your numbers are, is a different skill set, even if you're not doing that kind of scaling. And if you're going to go from practitioner to CEO, there's so many things that you have to learn to release. And it's interesting because if you say to somebody, let go, even when I say it, I go like this. Okay. I hold on. You don't want to let go. But if you say to somebody, can I hand you this? I've got a gift for you. Your hand goes out. So you can reach for something else. But the idea of just letting go, it's like scary, like let go and jump, let go. It's scary. But if you can focus on what it is you want to have, but it's not such a simple thing. It's not just focus on that and it happens. It's really learning how to work with your own resistance. It's working with, I call them the hidden power drivers that affect our performance. So there's a bunch of power drivers and you need to learn to work with those. And resistance is a big one, to be able to scale and to scale in a way that still gives you a life that you want to live.
Oh, definitely.
It's like we go into business a lot of times, people go into like multiple clinics and stuff because they want freedom. And yet the way they've set up a business guarantees that they can't have it.
Are you talking about me? Because I had one clinic and it was great. I had a really good clinic. And then over a number of years, I expanded about 5 clinics and over quite a large area. And the reason I did it is because I want to make sure my family are looked after and I can spend time with my family. But then all of a sudden I realized I was away more because my clinics were in different towns, hundreds of kilometers away. And all of a sudden I had a phone call from my daughter one night. She said, Daddy, why are you away all the time? And it just tore my heart out that I went, yeah, why am I away all the time? What am I doing? I said I was building this so I could have more time with my family, and I'm giving up the most precious time with my family. So I scaled back and went back to sold things, went back to one clinic, and I was so happy with one clinic. And then that one clinic just took off and did really well. And I was probably making more money from the one clinic than I was from the 5 clinics. So I think people go realize when you open up more clinics, you don't automatically get a pay rise, but you do get an increase in hours. It's just one of the things. And it's even with the coaching, like I do one-on-one coaching now, and I do a 12-week podiatry business reboot. And I've got the Spartans, which I've got the Spartans shirt on at the moment. And I've had some people ask me, oh, are you going to build a large coaching business? And I went, no, I don't want a large coaching business. I love doing what I'm doing. I love working from home. I love working one-on-one with people. I don't want to be like some of these other places where I've got to work so many hours a week and give up so much to try and keep 150 people in a room happy all the time.
And even if you were able to do it, because there are people that can scale.
Oh, and do it well.
Hands off. Yeah, because that works for them.
Yeah.
It might not make you as happy. So one of the things that's really important is really listening to yourself, getting a coach that listens to you, that doesn't just say everybody's got to scale.
Oh, yeah.
Really listens to who you are, what your needs are, what makes you light up and have joy. So it might be that if you scale, and I don't mean you because you're clear, but it might be that somebody, if they know how to scale in a way that works for them, it is spot on for them. But it might be that they need to give themselves permission to say, that's not my model.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's okay to not expand. It's okay to have one clinic that you really enjoy working at. But if I was talking to someone that said, oh, I want to have multiple clinics, I'll show you how to have multiple clinics. You can do it. But there's nothing wrong if you just want to have one clinic that is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are really important things. When we talk about getting to the top of your field, a lot of people assume that's about money.
Yeah, and it's not.
And it's not. I mean, money is part of the equation, right? It's like probably not at the top of your field if you are barely making any money and serving, unless you're in a clinic or something, or you're at a point in life.
You remember Zig Ziglar's quote, and he'd say, money's not the most important thing in the world, but I do put it up there with oxygen.
Yeah. So I think it's really like important to kind of say, okay, where is that? Where is that? But to realize that top of your field means different things for different people, and say, what does it mean for me to be top of my field? Then it's, who do I need to be to do that?
Yeah.
And what do I need to shift? So I always talk about mastering your state, and that's the state of your mind, the state of your body, what you think, what you feel, what the state of your business. It's all of those things. And you do it then by working with these power drivers, and resistance is a big one, but regulating your nervous system. Business, it's the way you deal with change, which is part of resistance. It's all kinds of other factors that go into these drivers that make us successful or hold us back. So I think it's such an important thing. Is most people want to be at the top of their field, but they don't necessarily want to have the push. And what I'm saying, the difference is, if you say to most podiatrists, do you want to be at the top do you want to be really good at what you do? Very few of them are going to say, oh no, I just want to be average at what I do. I'm not really interested in being that good. But they say no because they think that being at the top is either means just the money, or it means being famous, which for some people it does, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
Or being in a place that they may not want to be. So I always say, define what top of the field means to you. And then let's make that happen. Let's not do it on anybody else's terms. Let's do it on yours. Now, if you have a block that's kind of saying, I don't think I'm good enough, so I really want to be more, but I won't let myself go there, that's different. So
okay.
We want to clear that stuff. We don't want to come from limiting beliefs about ourselves or traumas that we've experienced. We don't want those to rise.
So it's like you asking them the question, do you want to be in the top of your field? And they go, I would, but I'm not good enough to be in the top of my field. So straight away, they're going to find proof and evidence to convince them why they're not good enough.
I'm not good enough, or, I'd like to be, but I don't want to work so hard, because it means a certain thing to them.
Okay.
Because it might mean that they have to work more than they want to work, or be away from their family, or that it's all about money. I want to be at the top of my field, but. So it's like really listen and respect those buts, because there's so much information. It's like so much information in the buts. You know, I always say, put them into an and I really listen to the buts, because you get so much about what's important. So most health professionals really want to do a good job. That's why
Yeah.
they went into it. They didn't go into it because they just wanted to like ho-hum it. But maybe they've been burned out, not only in terms of like, I'm exhausted, maybe they've had bad experiences. They don't think they can do good enough. They've had a bad patient, a patient bad mouth them, not a bad patient. Well, I
Yeah.
guess they're a bad patient, right?
But that all makes sense. It's even like, I always wanted to be the best podiatrist, but it wasn't that I had to be the richest podiatrist or have the biggest clinic. It was just, I wanted to be the best podiatrist I could possibly be.
And your eyes, when you do that, I can see them. It's like they're lighting up.
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
want to know
knew
what that means to somebody.
I was capable of it. But even when I look at coaching now, I want to be the top of my field when it comes to coaching podiatrists. But I also love being in the pool at 10:30 during the day. So I'm prepared to make that compromise, because I know being in the pool and say maybe picking my daughter up after school, or those things are just as important to me as being a really good business coach.
And so maybe it's not a compromise. Maybe it really is creating your life on the terms that you want, right? I don't know that you're compromising. I mean, it's true. You may not make as much money or have as many clients or whatever, or patients, yet you really are creating your life. And so for people to look and say, what is it that means to me? What does it mean to me? Then we can really talk about how you best create that. And we can see what it is that's kind of interfering. Is there a trauma that's made them scared of things? When they have a success, do they run away from it? Do they learn success breeds failure afterwards, or a collapse, or people being mean to you, or people being jealous, or people saying bad things about you, or who knows what? And then, as we said, we can set it up so that happens.
Yeah, I remember meeting a podiatrist many years ago, and it was a female podiatrist, and she didn't open a clinic on some days till like 9:30. She'd start at 9:30, and certain days she would close at 3:00. Other days she'd close at 5. And I said, how can you run a business like this? But she was so bloody happy, because she started at 9 and 9:30 because she took the kids to school and then would catch up with friends and have a coffee and make her way into work. And some of the afternoons when she finished, yes, she was picking the kids up from school, but the other time she finished early because she was going to like a Pilates class. And she had based the business around her life, was making good money. Her patients understood that these were the hours that she worked, and she was happy. And,
so doesn't that
and
sound
I think
like
back
being at the
now,
top of your field?
yeah, to me,
that sound to you like
yeah,
the top of your field, right?
Yeah. And this person was also, you'd see them at conferences. They were out there wanting to be a better podiatrist, but at the same time, their business revolved around their lifestyle, and they were super happy. And they never said a negative word about anybody that had, multiple clinics, were making a lot of money. They had a really positive attitude, which I thought was great.
So anything else that you think is relevant for right now, for like, that you see that interferes, that, if there's something that you want to say, because I know that there's a number of things that I see over and over and over. It's the way people deal with obstacles. It's the way, one of the big things that, we've talked about is the way people take other people's opinions or don't take other people's opinions, right? There's so many different things, but what do you see? I would love to know what you see as, like, if when you're coaching somebody, it's like, what do you want to tell them about that? Like being at the top of your field.
For me,
I'm kind of twisting it to you because it's your podcast, but it's like,
no, that's right.
I want to know, Tyson, what is it that you, because you have such a unique, you've had a clinic, you've had clinics, you've been in so many different aspects, you've worked with other professionals. How do you see that?
The biggest thing that I notice when I'm working with podiatrists one-on-one is they undervalue the skill that they have. We have a very unique skill that I think no other health professional has. We understand the foot, the ankle better than anybody else. But then when it comes to charging, we don't charge enough. And a lot of the people I've worked with, one of the first things I tell them to do, they'll tell me what they're charging for certain things. And I'll go, see this particular thing you do here? I want you to make it this amount. And they go, oh, I don't know if I can. I really don't know if I can. Okay, just do it and amuse me for the next week. When they do it, they'll come back and go, how'd it go? And they go, not one person complained. It's just straight away, just by changing this one thing, may add an extra $400 or $500 a week to their business, more than $2,000 a month, more than what they're paying me, they've already made back just from that first session that we do. And then once they understand that, they go, so I can do that in other parts of my business. Then they start, and it's not overcharging people. It's valuing the education you've got, the amount of money you spend for continuing education, the equipment that you purchase, the staff that you bring on. And so that's the biggest thing that I've noticed is podiatrists compared to other professions undervalue their service and do not charge enough.
Do you think there's a cultural aspect to where other people see podiatrists that then the podiatrist takes in and reflects back on their own feeling about themselves?
I think sometimes when we talked earlier on where some people podiatry wasn't their first choice, and I got into podiatry because I couldn't get into whatever it is they wanted to do. And when you said, okay, maybe they've had some other past traumas or that's made that a reality, and therefore when they see what other professions charge, they feel, I'm not worthy of charging that amount. And when they see somebody else charging, they go, you must be, maybe you're overcharging. And I'm thinking the value of the service is in the eye of the patient. It's not us to judge. So I used to say to people, okay, if you're not getting at least 5 or 10% of your patients questioning your fees, then you're probably not charging enough. So if nobody ever complains about your fees, nobody. Yeah, if you get the odd one pensioner who has a bit of a whinge because it's interfering with her buying a coffee afterwards, that doesn't count. But if you're not getting any complaints about your fees, then you are obviously not charging enough.
So it's interesting what you just said, because what you said is the value is the patient's perception.
Yeah.
And yet the value of the practitioner of themselves takes away from that. And actually, one of the things we do see in medicine, and we see it in life, is that if you charge too little, it devalues the experience for the patient. So it's not, sometimes even if people can't afford, or they're getting subsidized or something like that, having a service be more expensive gives it a different value. And even what you said before is really interesting about the podiatrists that just see it about the feet. Now, I know if I go back to my orthotics, if I had the wrong orthotic or no orthotic, my knees hurt, my back hurt.
Yeah. So how much is that worth to you?
And that's what I was going to say to you. Exactly. How much is that worth? I could go to the chiropractor. My husband's an acupuncturist all day long. But if my feet were throwing that off, and I had chiropractors say, I think you better go get an orthotic before I can help you.
Yeah. I had someone tell me a really good story once, and they said they were at a dinner party and they'd made a pair of orthotics for a friend. I can't remember who told me the story. I wish I could credit it to somebody. And they said that their friend, when they were at this dinner party, the friend would always bring up, oh yeah, can't believe how much you charge me for those orthotic things you put in my shoes. Right? And one day he just went, you know what, I've had a gut full of this. You paid me like $400.
Give them back.
Give them back to me. I will give you the $400 back, and will you just shut up? I never want to hear you whinge about it again. And the guy went, no way. I'm not going to give them back to you. He said, why not? He goes, because when I wear them, all my pain in my knee, my back, and all that goes away. Yeah, my ankles. He went, okay, I'll give you $600. I'll give you $200 more than what you paid. He went, no. He says, I'll give you $800. I'll give you $1,000, 2.5 times what you paid, if you give them back to me, and bugger off and never talk about it again. And the guy went, no. And he said, well, how much are they worth to you then? And he went, oh. He said, you only paid $400, and I'm prepared to give you $1,000, and you still will not part with them. He goes, so shut up and never bring it up again. He said, never brought it up again after that. And I went, that is a fantastic story. And just something else I'll share is a lot of people listening to this podcast know I like hamburgers. So I have eaten hamburgers that may cost $10 at certain places that have been good hamburgers. Like I love a good In-N-Out burger over in the States. But I've also been to burger in Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in Las Vegas. And I paid, it might have been $28 for this hamburger. Now, was it the $28 hamburger better than the $10 hamburger? They were both really, really good hamburgers. And I've got photos of both of them to prove it. But if Gordon Ramsay only charged $10 for his burger, his business wouldn't be there. And I think podiatrists have got to realize that you can't just look at what the opposition are charging and charge the same as them, because if you've got more overheads, if you've got more education that you want to do, you've got to charge accordingly. So Gordon Ramsay charges. One, he's got a good reputation. It was a good restaurant and it was a good burger. And I didn't have a problem paying $28. Actually, I think it was $25 American I paid, which in Australian dollars is a lot more. So there's probably Australians going, my God, that's a lot for a burger. But it was a bloody good burger. And it had black sesame seeds on it.
You're making me hungry. But yeah, and you and I have talked about burgers on podcasts before, which is funny. But this is a great story because it's so important. And one of the things, there's another aspect of that that people don't think about. And that is when you're devaluing your service to a patient,
yeah,
you're really devaluing the benefit to the patient and actually limiting the effectiveness. If, placebo effect is real, it's not a bad thing, it's real. And so something can either be made more or less powerful by how we hold it. And so if you as a practitioner don't feel like this treatment is very valuable, you're going to influence its ability to work.
True.
Now, there was a cancer study years ago, and I wish I had the reference for it, but it found that the most key factor in whether a patient survived or not was the belief of the practitioner, not the belief of the patient, but whether the practitioner believed it. And so that affected everything in the patient, was what their doctor believed. So if the doctor believes that their treatment and they themselves are not so valuable, they're communicating a real disservice to their client on so many levels.
Well, it's no different to, you buy a $5 t-shirt and you treat it like a $5 t-shirt. You buy a $40 t-shirt, you treat it completely different to your $5 t-shirt. If you're given a free t-shirt, you don't care what happens to it because it was free. If you leave it in your motel room, doesn't matter, it was free. But if you bought a $40 t-shirt and left it in your motel room, that bugs you. So to me, when you're giving advice to a patient, if you're giving them $5 advice, they're going to treat it like $5 advice. If you give them $40 advice, they're going to treat it like $40 advice, and everybody is happier.
It's funny because I don't really say this directly in the same way I did, but I started out in business teaching for a speed reading company. It wasn't my first thing. I've been in business forever, but that was one of the, a big thing that I had. So I was tied for #1 salesperson, and I taught for them. And so when I would sell, people would say, how come this course is so much more expensive than the other guy's course? And my answer to them was, I guess they know what their course is worth. And that kind of it's I know what my course is worth. I don't know, they must know what their course is worth. And that really ended the conversation. Now, the truth is, if a patient comes to me and says, how come the therapist down the street or the business consultant down the street charges less, I don't say that person knows what their service is worth, but I do say a similar version of it. And I communicate a version of it. I communicate, not putting the other person down. I mean, I was 20 years old then, right? But I do communicate that I know the value.
Yeah, we used to do a similar thing. At the time, I think our initial consultation may have been $125 for a certain service. Somebody would ring up and they say, I was just wondering how much it is for a consultation. We say, oh, it's $125. They go, oh, the guy down the road is only charging $85. I go, oh, right. I go, well, if they're charging $85 and we're charging $125, we must be doing something completely different. And they went, obviously, and they'd make an appointment.
So these are the things that you and I are talking from a position of strength.
Yeah.
And I think that what I want to say is not everybody has to have that internally, but they can cultivate it. They can look for the places that they're good. They can look at the places they sell themselves short. They can look and say, how come that guy down the street is charging more than me? Maybe not less than me, but what are they better? Because I'll tell you, most of the time they're not better. They're not better, but they're more willing to put themselves out there. So I love this topic. I mean, we could go on about this topic.
I know. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm thinking what I want to do is get you back at some stage. And like I said, I had you on 6 times on This No Secret with Dr. T. It was at least 5 or 6 times. I'm pretty sure it was 6.
I think it was 6. I think we
Yeah,
did 2,
I was
and then
about,
we
yeah, I
did
was about
about
to,
4 on branding, right? The one on branding.
yeah.
We could talk about branding for podiatrists too.
Yeah, well, we did
The
4. We
inner
did
game
4
of-
episodes
right.
just on branding.
Mhm.
So
Inner game of branding for podiatrists.
yeah, so what we'll do is organize another time for you to come back on. I like that.
Awesome.
Branding
Awesome.
for podiatrists. So Dr. K, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing your knowledge and wisdom, which there's so much, like we could talk for hours and hours and hours. I know that. And I hope people listening to this have taken away something about how to become like the top of the podiatry field. And like you said, it's not about money. It's about them understanding what is the top of the field, what it means to them. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I guess just what I want to leave people with, I always love, doing your podcast. What I want to leave them with is that once they define what it means to them, they can create it. They can get help to create it. So even if it feels like, oh, that's not me, that's, him or her over there.
Yeah.
If once they define what it means to them, what they really want, what they're not willing to kind of go for before, but deep down they can kind of get in touch with, then they can create it. They can do it. And I don't think there's one person listening that that's not true of.
No, I totally agree. So thank you again. And
thank you.
I can't wait to get you back on here and we can talk some more.
Awesome. Thank you.